Wow.
I want to share with you an amazing story. 10 years ago, where we're standing right now, this is all underground. Our visitor center was above our heads. And one morning, a woman by the name of Dr. Eilat Mazar, a world-renowned archaeologist from a family of world-renowned archaeologists, she comes into our visitor center and says, "You guys need to move your offices." We said, "Good morning, Dr. Mazar. How are you today?"
Great way to start a day.
Right. So why, Dr. Mazar, do we need to move our visitor center? She says it's really very simple. She says King David's palace is located beneath your visitor center.
Wow.
So, Dr. Mazar, why do you think there have been, 10 years ago, up until then, probably about 15, 16 archaeological expeditions done here in the city of David? No one had ever said that King David's palace was here. Why, Dr. Mazar, do you believe that this is the site of King David's palace? She said, well, this is the uppermost point of the city of David, directly beneath the old city walls and the Temple Mount to the north of us. She says it makes the most sense that where would the palace, it would be at the top of the city. So we said, Dr. Mazar, it could be that, you're right, that it makes the most sense to build the palace here, but maybe 3,000 years ago, they built the palace in the middle of the city. Maybe they built the palace at the bottom.
Yes.
We're
How
not,
do you know?
right, we're not gonna move our visitor center just because if you were to be king, or in this case, queen, you would build your palace here. We need a little bit more substance. So she says, you know what? Let us take a look at the stone that we have on the wall right behind us. We see here a royal Phoenician capital. Phoenicia is modern-day Lebanon. This stone is a replica. The original is in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. It was found at the bottom of the hill from which we're above right now.
Oh my goodness.
And Dr. Mazar says this royal Phoenician capital proves that this is the site of David's palace. And so we asked Dr. Mazar, we said, maybe it proves something about the Phoenicians, but what does that have to do with David? So she says, let's take out our Bible. And she says, if we go to 2 Samuel chapter 5, so what does it say? It says, David has just captured the city from the ancient Jebusites.
Yes.
And the first thing that he does, it says, King Hiram of Tyre sent envoys to David with cedar logs, carpenters and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David.
Oh my goodness.
The reason why we find a royal Phoenician capital here in ancient Jerusalem, in the city of David, is because the Phoenicians were the ones who built the palace.
Of course.
And that was amazing. Dr. Mazar goes on, she says that the ancient Philistines, the arch rivals of Israel, they hear that David is now in Jerusalem,
Yes.
they come to make war.
Yes.
And it says that David goes down to the fortress. Dr. Mazar says if David's going down to the fortress, it means that he's coming from the top. If he's going down, it means he came from the top of the city. So we said, Dr. Mazar, this is amazing. We're going to help you to have this excavation happen here. The Israel Antiquities Authority comes in. They're the body that oversees all the archaeological excavations here in Israel, and they begin excavating.
My goodness.
Dr. Mazar finds this large wall behind us over here, this significant wall over here. It's clear that there was a monumental structure here. Dr. Mazar finds pottery at the base of these walls, dating back to what she believes is the 10th century BCE, before the Common Era, to the time of King David.
Oh my goodness. Over 3,000 years of history right here.
Exactly. Now, I'll tell you something else that I think is amazing. The year today is 2014, or almost 2015. 1993, if someone would have come here and you said, I'm going to go visit the city of David, they would say, and are you going to visit Mother Goose afterwards? Right? It's not real, right? Until
Just 10 years ago.
Right. Until 1993,
Okay.
right? And what happened in 1993? There was an excavation in the north of Israel, a place called Tel Dan. And there they uncovered a stone slab. And on this stone slab, there was writing from the ancient Arameans and other people mentioned in the Bible.
Yes.
And this king, he boasts and says, I just defeated a king of Judah from the house of David. And all the people who denied that David was a real figure, they were silenced.
Wow.
There was archaeological proof that there was a Davidic dynasty. And Dr. Mazar says, 10 years ago, this is his palace.
Wow.
And you see he's someone of international repute because he has relations with his neighbors, the Phoenicians to the north. He is a key figure.
Yes. But this is the David, the guy after God's own heart. And this is where he lived. This is his actual palace.
Actual palace.
Oh my goodness.
And not just his palace, but those who came after him. And on that note, I want to share another story with you. Dr. Mazar is digging down. Archaeology is layers. You go layer by layer. The closer it is to the top, the more modern. The lower you get, the more ancient. Dr. Mazar goes through the layers. She hits a layer of ash, dating back approximately to 586 before the Common Era, the year that Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians.
What? Nebuchadnezzar you're talking?
Exactly. Now she finds something in this ash layer that changes the world. She finds here 2 clay seals. I'll show you. They're about the size of a thumbnail. We're talking about,
that a real one?
this is a real replica, right? This is a real replica of a clay seal. Now, what would you use this for? You want to send a correspondence. You want to make sure nobody reads it who's not supposed to. So you take your scroll, you tie it up, and then you would take some clay and you would put it on the knot and you would have a ring. And the ring would be your name, Brian, and let's say your father's name. So it would be Brian, son of your father, right? You would put it into the clay, it would harden, and then you would deliver it to the messenger who would then have to deliver it to me. If the seal is intact, I know he didn't read the mail, and I know that it came from you. If the seal is not intact, I guess you kill the messenger.
Right.
So what happens here? So
Security.
Dr. Mazar is digging, she finds these seals. Now, before I tell you the names that are written on these seals, during this time period, there's a man. His name is Jeremiah. For 40 years, Jeremiah is walking through the streets of Jerusalem. Here, in ancient Jerusalem, telling all the people, the kings, the soldiers, the common folk, Jerusalem has become corrupted. If you don't change your ways, the city will be destroyed. But people didn't listen. No one wanted to. They mocked him. They scorned him. Until one day, the people woke up, looked out their window, and they saw the Babylonian army besieging Jerusalem. Jeremiah comes with a new prophecy, says the city is going to be destroyed. He tells King Zedekiah, if you do not surrender the city to the Babylonians, you and your sons and many of the people in the city will die. But if you surrender the city, you'll survive, you'll go into exile. The ministers of King Zedekiah said, this is treason. And the ministers in Jeremiah chapter 38, what do they say to the king? They say the following. They say, let that man, talking about Jeremiah, be put to death, for he disheartens the soldiers and all the people who are left in the city by speaking such things to them. That man is not seeking their welfare, but their harm. King Zedekiah replied, he is in your hands. I cannot oppose you in any way.
Wow.
Dr. Mazar says to us, I found 2 seals here. There are names on these seals.
What are the names?
What are the names? Not only, I'll tell you the names. These names appear in the Bible. But not only do they appear in the Bible, they appear in the same book in the Bible. The book of Jeremiah. Not only do they appear in the book of Jeremiah, they appear in the same chapter, chapter 38. Not only do they appear in the same chapter, they appear in the same verse, verse 1. Not only do they appear in the same verse, they appear back to back in that very same verse. Not only do they appear back to back in that very same verse, they are found, the seals, where are they found? In the royal government center of Jerusalem. Where? In an ash layer dating back to the destruction of the temple. Who are these people? They are 2 of the 4 ministers mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 38, verse 1, Gedaliah son of Pashhur and Yuchal son of Shlemiah, back to back here in the Bible. Found right here.
Let me touch that seal.
These,
That seal.
now I'll tell you something that's amazing here, Brian. When I ask people, what do you think the seals were made out of? They say they were probably made out of wax. You know what would have happened if the seals would have been made out of wax? They would have melted. The city was burnt. These seals were found in an ash layer from fire. If these seals would have been made out of wax, you would not have them today.
Wow.
They were made out of clay, which hardens. And what you have here is an amazing, it's preserved, exactly. And what you have here, this book here, the Bible, is a book of faith for billions of people. Today, we live in a generation where people don't just want to believe, they also want to know.
Yes.
And the antiquities, the archaeology that we have here, the science of what's being found in the ground here in ancient Jerusalem is showing that the Bible is true, that you have faith and knowledge coming together.